Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Our first story is titled, Mom and Dad wanted to scam my stepmom, but I exposed them and blew up their lives. It all started about 6 months ago. I'm 28 years old, working as an accountant in the city. My parents divorced when I was 15 and it wasn't pretty. Dad cheated on Mom with his secretary. Yeah, I know, cliche as hell. And Mom never really got over it. She became bitter, always bad-mouthing Dad to anyone who'd listen. Dad married Sandra, his former secretary, about a year after the divorce. At first, I was resentful towards her, blaming her for breaking up my family. But as I grew older and gained some perspective, I realized that while what they did was wrong, my dad was equally to blame for the affair. And Sandra, well, she turned out to be a really decent person. Over the years, Sandra made consistent efforts to build a relationship with me. She never tried to replace my mom, but she was always there if I needed someone to talk to. She remembered my birthdays, celebrated my achievements, and even helped me land my first internship through a connection of hers. Gradually, I found myself warming up to her. My mom, on the other hand, remained stuck in her bitterness. She never remarried or even dated, as far as I knew. Her whole life seemed to revolve around nursing her grudge against Dad and Sandra. I tried to encourage her to move on, but she just brushed me off saying I didn't understand. Anyway, back to 6 months ago, I was having dinner with my dad and Sandra at their place, something we did every couple of weeks. Sandra had just turned 50 and she was telling us about her plans to retire early. I've been thinking about it for a while, she said, sipping her wine. My parents left me a substantial inheritance, and I've been smart with my investments. I think I'm in a good position to retire in the next year or two. I noticed my dad's eyes light up at this. That's wonderful, honey, he said, patting her hand. You deserve to relax and enjoy life. Something about his tone made me uneasy, but I brushed it off. We continued our dinner, chatting about my work and their plans for an upcoming vacation. A few days later, I met up with my mom for our weekly coffee date. As soon as I sat down, I could tell something was off. She had this weird, excited energy about her. Sean, honey, she said, leaning in conspiratorially. I've got some news. I raised an eyebrow. Oh yeah? What's up, Mom? She glanced around as if checking for eavesdropper, then said in a low voice, Your father called me yesterday. He wants to meet up and talk about getting back together. I nearly choked on my latte. What? Are you serious? She nodded eagerly. He said he's realized what a mistake he made, that he never stopped loving me. Can you believe it? I couldn't actually. It made no sense. Dad and Sandra seemed happy together, and he'd never given any indication that he regretted marrying her. Something wasn't adding up. Mom, I said carefully, are you sure about this? It seems sudden. She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, I know it sounds crazy, but I always had a feeling he'd come back to me someday. That woman was just a midlife crisis. I left that coffee date feeling deeply unsettled. Over the next few weeks, my unease only grew. Mom was constantly talking about Dad, planning their future together. She even started looking at houses they could buy. Meanwhile, whenever I saw Dad and Sandra, everything seemed normal on the surface, but I started noticing little things. The way Dad would check his phone more often, how he'd sometimes have hushed phone conversation when he thought no one was listening. It all came to a head about a month later. I was at Dad and Sandra's place helping Sandra set up her new laptop. Dad was out golfing, or so he said. As I was transferring files from her old computer to the new one, an email notification popped up. I didn't mean to read it, but the subject line caught my eye. Regarding divorce attorney consultation. My heart sank. I tried to pretend I hadn't seen anything, but Sandra noticed my expression. Sean, what's wrong? She asked, concerned. I hesitated, then decided to be honest. Sandra, I accidentally saw an email about a divorce attorney. Is everything okay between you and Dad? Sandra's face fell. She was quiet for a long moment, then said softly, I've been suspecting for a while that your father might be cheating on me. I hired a private investigator last week. My mind was reeling. Cheating? With who? She shook her head. I don't know, but he's been so secretive lately, always on his phone, making excuses to go out. It's like when we first, the pieces were starting to fall into place, and I didn't like the picture they were forming. I took a deep breath and told Sandra about my mom's claims that Dad wanted to get back together with her. Sandra's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in anger. That lying, cheating bastard, she hissed. After everything we've been through. I felt horrible. Sandra, I'm so sorry. I should have said something sooner. I didn't want to believe it. She reached out and squeezed my hand. It's not your fault, Sean. You're caught in the middle of this mess, and that's not fair to you. We spent the next hour talking, piecing together what we knew. By the end of it, we were both convinced that my dad was planning to leave Sandra for my mom, but something still didn't add up. I don't understand, I said, running my hands through my hair in frustration. Why now? They've been divorced for over a decade. Why would Dad suddenly want to get back with Mom? Sandra's face darkened. The inheritance, she said quietly. I told you both about it at dinner last month, remember? Your father's never been great with money, always looking for get-rich-quick schemes. I bet he sees my inheritance as his ticket to an easy retirement. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. And Mom, she's always been resentful about the divorce settlement. She probably sees this as her chance to finally get what she thinks she deserves. Sandra nodded grimly. They're planning to take me for everything I've got. I felt sick. My own parents, plotting to scam this woman who had only ever been kind to me. It was despicable. We need to stop them, I said firmly. We need proof. Over the next week, Sandra and I turned into amateur detectives. We combed through phone records, bank statements, anything we could get our hands on. Sandra's private investigator came through with photos of my parents meeting at various restaurants and hotels. But the smoking gun came from an unexpected source. My dad, in his infinite wisdom, had been using the family computer to email my mom about their plans. Sandra found the emails in his deleted folder. They laid out the whole scheme, how they'd wait until the divorce was finalized, then Dad would transfer all the assets to Mom to protect them before they'd get remarried. Reading those emails made my blood boil. The casual way they discussed deceiving Sandra, the gleeful plans for how they'd spend their money, it was sickening. We've got them, I told Sandra, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and relief. What do you want to do? Sandra's eyes were steely with determination. I want to take them down, she said, hard. The next day, we put our plan into action. Sandra called her lawyer and started divorce proceedings, armed with evidence of Dad's infidelity and the email proof of their scheme. She also reported Dad to his company's ethics board for misuse of company resources. He had been using his work email for some of his communications with Mom. As for me, I had the unenviable task of confronting my parents. I invited them both to dinner, telling each of them that I wanted to discuss their rekindled relationship. They showed up at the restaurant looking smug and self-satisfied. Oh, honey, Mom gushed as soon as she sat down. I'm so glad you're supportive of me and your father getting back together. I always knew you wanted your real family back. Dad nodded, reaching across the table to pat my hand. It's all working out for the best, son. Soon we'll be one big happy family again. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to do. Cut the crap, I said flatly. I know what you're really planning. Their faces froze, fake smiles plastered on. What do you mean, sweetie? Mom stammered. I pulled out copies of their emails and slapped them on the table. I mean this, I said, your scheme to scam Sandra out of her inheritance. Did you really think you'd get away with it? The color drained from both their faces. Dad started to sputter some excuse, but I cut him off. Save it, I snapped. I've heard enough of your lies. Do you have any idea how despicable this is? How could you do this to Sandra? To me? Mom's shock was quickly replaced by indignation. How dare you judge us, she hissed. After everything that woman took from me, I deserve that money. Sandra didn't take anything from you, I retorted. Dad's the one who cheated, and even if he hadn't, that doesn't give you the right to steal from her. Dad tried to placate me. Now, son, you're overreacting. This is just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I laughed bitterly. Was it a misunderstanding when you wrote, and I quote, once the divorce is final, I'll transfer everything to you. That bitch won't see a penny. They both flinched at that. The realization that they were well and truly caught seemed to finally sink in. What are you going to do? Dad asked, his voice small and scared. I stood up, looking down at them with a mixture of disgust and pity. It's already done, I said. Sandra's lawyers have been informed. So has your company, Dad. I'm sure the police will be in touch soon after the fraud charges. I started to walk away, then turned back for one last parting shot. Oh, and in case it wasn't clear, I want nothing more to do with either of you. Goodbye. As I walked out of the restaurant, I could hear Mom starting to wail and Dad cursing loudly. I felt a twinge of sadness, but mostly I felt relieved it was over. The next few months were a whirlwind. True to her word, Sandra went after Dad with everything she had. The divorce was finalized in record time, with Dad getting absolutely nothing. He also lost his job when the company found out about his unethical behavior. Mom didn't fare much better. When news of their scheme got out, small towns and all that, she became a social pariah. She ended up having to move away to escape the gossip and judgment. As for me, well, it wasn't easy. Cutting ties with my parents, no matter how justified, left a hole in my life. But Sandra stepped up in a big way. She made sure I knew that I would always have a place in her life, scheme or no scheme. You're the son I never had, she told me one day, her eyes misty. I hope you know that this doesn't change anything between us. I felt my own eyes welling up. Thanks, Sandra. That means a lot. Over time, the dust settled. Dad ended up taking a job in another state, his tail between his legs. Last I heard, Mom was trying to rebuild her life in a new city. I haven't spoken to either of them since that night at the restaurant. Sandra, true to her word, retired early. She's been traveling the world, sending me postcards from every exotic location. She even set up a small trust fund for me, saying she wanted to make sure I was taken care of. You saved me from financial ruin, she said when I tried to refuse. Please, let me do this for you. As for me, life goes on. My career is going well, and I've started seeing someone new. It's been hard learning to trust again after seeing how easily my parents betrayed not just Sandra, but me as well. But I'm working on it. The months following the exposure of my parents' scheme were some of the most challenging of my life. I threw myself into my work, often staying late at the office just to avoid going home to an empty apartment and my thoughts. My colleagues noticed the change in me, but I brushed off their concerns with vague excuses about a family issue. One day, about 3 months after the confrontation, my boss called me into his office. I was sure I was in trouble for something, but instead he surprised me with a promotion. You've been doing exceptionally work lately, Sean, he said. I think you're ready for more responsibility. How would you feel about heading up to our new forensic accounting division? I was stunned. Forensic accounting had always interested me, but I never thought I'd get the chance to specialize in it so early in my career. I accepted on the spot. As I dove into my new role, I found that the skills I developed while uncovering my parents' scheme were invaluable. I had a knack for spotting inconsistencies, for following the money trail. It was challenging work, but deeply satisfying. For the first time in months, I felt like I was moving forward instead of just treading water. Outside of work, I started seeing a therapist to help me process everything that had happened. She was patient and insightful, helping me work through my feelings of betrayal and guilt. "It's normal to feel conflicted," she told me during one session. "They're your parents, but remember, you didn't cause this situation. You simply exposed the truth." Slowly but surely, I started to heal. I reconnected with old friends I've been neglecting, joined a local sports league, even started volunteering at an animal shelter on weekends. Life was starting to feel normal again. Then, about 6 months after the confrontation, I met the love of my life. She was a lawyer working on one of the cases I was consulting on. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love of true crime podcasts and terrible puns. Our first date was at a hole-in-the-wall Italian place. I was nervous as hell, fumbling with my fork and nearly knocking over my water glass. But she just laughed, her eyes twinkling. "Relax," she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "I don't bite unless you're into that sort of thing." She winked, and just like that, the tension broke. We talked for hours that night about everything and nothing. I found myself opening up to her in a way I hadn't with anyone in a long time. When I hesitantly told her about what had happened with my parents, I braced myself for judgment or pity. Instead, she squeezed my hand and said, "Wow, that must have been incredibly tough. But you did the right thing, Sean. Not everyone would have had the courage to stand up to their parents like that." Her words meant more to me than I could express. For the first time since the whole mess started, I felt truly understood. As she and I grew closer, I introduced her to Sandra. I was nervous about it. After all, Sandra was the closest thing to a parent I had left. But I needn't have worried. The two of them hit it off immediately, chatting and laughing like old friends. After she left, Sandra pulled me aside. "She's a keeper, Sean," she said with a smile. "I haven't seen you this happy in a long time." I couldn't help but agree. With her by my side and Sandra's unwavering support, I finally felt like I was building a new kind of family, one based on trust, respect, and genuine love. A year after exposing my parents' scheme, I received a letter from my mom. My hand shook as I opened it, unsure of what to expect. Inside was a long, rambling apology. She wrote about how she'd been in therapy, how she'd finally realized the depth of her bitterness and how it had poisoned every aspect of her life. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she wrote. "What I did was unforgivable, but I want you to know that I'm truly sorry for the pain I've caused you. You deserve better parents than your father and I turned out to be." I sat with that letter for a long time, emotions swirling through me. Anger, sadness, a tiny flicker of hope. I didn't respond right away. I needed time to process, to figure out how I felt. I didn't hear anything from my dad. Last I knew, he was still trying to rebuild his life in another state. Part of me was hurt by his silence, but another part was relieved. I wasn't sure I was ready to hear from him yet. As for Sandra, she continued to travel the world, sending me postcards and gifts from every new place she visited. She also started a small charitable foundation focused on helping victims of financial fraud. She often joked that it was her way of letting karmic payback for what my parents had tried to do to her. "Life's too short to hold on to bitterness," she told me once. "I'd rather use my energy to do some good in the world." Her resilience and generosity never ceased to amaze me. She'd taken a horrible situation and turned it into something positive. I hope that someday I'd be able to do the same. As for me, well, life goes on. My career is thriving. I've even started giving guest lectures at the local university on forensic accounting. Sarah and I are talking about moving in together. It's a big step, but I feel ready for it. Sometimes I still wonder if I did the right thing. Maybe I should have tried to reason with them, give them a chance to back out of their scheme. But then I remember the callous way they talked about ruining Chandra's life, and I know I made the right choice. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who stand by you, who support you, and love you unconditionally. By that definition, Sandra is more family to me now than my parents ever were. And with my girlfriend, hopefully, eventually joining the family at some point too, I can say for sure that the family I've found is truly a beautiful one. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe someday, years from now, I'll be ready to hear my parents out to see if they've genuinely changed. But for now, I'm focused on moving forward, on building a life filled with honesty, integrity, and real love. Because at the end of the day, those are the things that truly matter. Not money, not revenge, not even blood ties, just genuine human connection and the courage to stand up for what's right, no matter the cost. Here are my thoughts about the story. This dude's got nerves of steel, I swear. Imagine finding out your parents, the people who are supposed to have your back, are plotting more straight up soap opera villainy. I'd be curled up in a ball, ugly crying and stuffing my face with ice cream. But Sean, he goes full Sherlock Holmes and fights for what's right instead of siding blindly with money and blood. And Sandra, oh man, Sandra's the real MVP here. She's like the cool stepmom we all wish we had. You know, the one who remembers your birthday and doesn't try to ground you for breathing too loudly. The fact that she's stuck by Sean through all this mess, that's some real ride or die energy right there. Now, let's talk about the parents for a hot second. I mean, what in the name of daytime TV drama were they thinking? Did they binge watch too many episodes of How to Get Away with Murder and think, hey, that looks fun, let's try it? I've seen some dumb schemes in my life, but this one takes the prize for most likely to backfire spectacularly. But you know what really got me? The way Sean described feeling torn about exposing them. That hit me right in the feels, folks. It's easy to sit here and say, yeah, turn those suckers in. But when it's your own flesh and blood, that's gotta mess with your head something fierce. And can we appreciate for a moment how Sean turned this whole dumpster fire of a situation into a career opportunity? Those real-world application problems from my old algebra class wish they had his skills. Forensic accounting might not sound sexy, but after this story, I'm half tempted to switch careers myself. CSI, spreadsheets, anyone? Oh, and this new girl, Sean, my man, you hit the jackpot there. A girl who can crack terrible puns and doesn't run screaming when you drop the "my parents are wannabe con artists" bomb. That's a keeper if I ever saw one. Now, I gotta admit, part of me was kind of hoping for a dramatic courtroom showdown. You know, Sean dramatically pointing at his parents, yelling, "You can't handle the truth," while the jury gasps in shock. But real life isn't a John Grisham novel, I guess. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge is just living your best life while the bad guy fades into irrelevance. But here's what really stuck with me about this story. The idea that family isn't just about DNA. It's about who shows up for you, who stands up by you when the chips are down. Sandra didn't have to stick around after the divorce, but she chose to be there for Sean. That's some real family right there. And let's be real, we've all had those moments where we've wondered if our family is secretly plotting against us. Next time your mom asks you to help her with her phone, just remember, at least she's not trying to scam your stepmom out of her inheritance, right? In all seriousness, though, this story's got me thinking about the choices we make and the consequences they have. Sean could have kept his mouth shut, could have let his parents get away with it, even benefited from it, considering who was considering the financial crimes. But he chose to do the right thing, even though it cost him his relationship with his parents. That's not an easy choice to make, and I gotta say, I'm not sure I'd have had the guts to do it. So here's to Sean, the accidental hero of our story. Here's to Sandra, the stepmom we all wish we had. And here's to doing the right thing, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And now, guys, we will move on to the second story of the video. Please like the video if you have enjoyed it so far. The story starts like this. Mom chose my bully over me and is now crying since I told her she's dead to me. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to cut ties with my own mother. Growing up, we were close, or at least I thought we were. But looking back now, I can see the cracks that were always there, hidden beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect family. My name is Jennifer, and this is the story of how I finally stood up for myself and cut my toxic mother out of my life for good. It all started when I was about 12 years old. That's when my cousin, Lana, came to live with us. Her parents had died in a car accident, and since my mom was her closest living relative, she took Lana in. At first, I was excited to have Lana living with us. I'd always wanted a sister, and even though Lana was a year older than me, I thought we'd become best friends. Boy, was I wrong. From day one, Lana made it clear that she saw me as competition, not family. She'd make snide comments about my clothes, my hair, my friends. Anything she could criticize, she would. At first, I tried to brush it off. I figured she was just acting out because of the trauma of losing her parents. But as the weeks turned into months, Lana's behavior only got worse. She started spreading rumors about me at school, telling people I wet the bed or that I stuffed my bra. She'd accidentally spill things on my homework or ruin my clothes in the wash. Once she even put hair removal cream in my shampoo bottle, causing a huge bald patch on the top of my head. Through it all, my mother did nothing. Whenever I tried to tell her about Lana's bullying, she'd brush me off. "Oh, honey, I'm sure she didn't mean it that way," Mom would say, or, "You need to be more understanding. Lana's been through so much." It was like my mom had blinders on when it came to Lana. No matter what she did, Mom always had an excuse ready. Things came to a head during my 13th birthday party. I'd invited a small group of friends over for a sleepover. We were having a great time until Lana decided to join us. She waltzed into my room uninvited and immediately started making fun of everything. The decorations, the snacks, even my friends. When I asked her to leave, she grabbed the cake my mom had made specially for me and smashed it in my face. As I stood there, frosting dripping down my shirt, Lana just laughed. "Oops," she said with a smirk. "Guess you should have been nicer to me." I ran to find my mom, sobbing and covered in cake. But instead of comforting me or punishing Lana, Mama just sighed. "Jennifer, you need to learn to share," she said. "Lana probably just felt left out. Why don't you invite her to join your party?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own mother was taking Lana's side yet again, even after she deliberately ruined my birthday. That was the moment I realized I couldn't count on my mom to protect me or take my side. From then on, I stopped trying to get my mom to intervene with Lana. Instead, I focused on just surviving until I could leave for college. I threw myself into my studies and extracurricular activities, spending as much time away from home as possible. Lana's bullying continued throughout high school, but I learned to avoid her as much as I could. I'd lock myself in my room when I was home, and I made sure to never leave anything important where she could get to it. My mom, meanwhile, continued to fawn over Lana. She'd praise every little thing Lana did, while barely acknowledging my accomplishments. When I made honor roll, Mom just nodded and said, "That's nice, dear." But when Lana got a B on a test, Mom took her out for ice cream to celebrate. The final straw came during my senior year of high school. I'd been accepted to my dream college, a prestigious university on the other side of the country. I was thrilled at the prospect of finally getting away from Lana and starting fresh. But when I told my mom the news, her reaction was less than enthusiastic. "Oh," she said, frowning, But that's so far away and it must be very expensive. Are you sure you wouldn't rather go to State U with Lana? Then you two could be roommates. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Even now, with me about to leave home, my mom was still putting Lana first. No, Mom, I said firmly. I'm going to my dream school. I've worked hard for this, and I'm not giving it up. Mom sighed. Well, if you're sure, but don't expect us to be able to help much with tuition. We need to save money for Lana's college fund too, you know. That was the last straw. I'd been saving every penny from my part-time job and had applied for dozens of scholarships. Meanwhile, Lana spent all her money on clothes and makeup and barely maintained a C average. But of course, Mom was going to prioritize Lana's education over mine. I didn't say another word to my mom that night. I just went to my room and started researching student loans and work-study programs. I was determined to make it work, with or without my parents' help. The next few months were a blur of graduation preparations and getting ready for college. Mom kept trying to guilt me into changing my mind, but I stood firm. When move-in day finally arrived, I felt nothing but relief as I watched my childhood home disappear in the rearview mirror. College was everything I'd hoped it would be and more. For the first time in years, I felt free. I made real friends who liked me for who I was. I excelled in my classes and joined clubs that interested me. I even started dating a wonderful guy named Rowan. Meanwhile, things back home were apparently not going so well. Lana had decided not to go to college after all, preferring to find herself while living rent-free in my parents' house. Mom would call me occasionally to complain about Lana's laziness or her latest boyfriend drama, but I found it hard to muster much sympathy. I kept my visits home to a minimum, using my busy schedule and lack of funds as excuses. When I did go home on holidays, I made sure to keep my stay short and avoided being alone with Lana as much as possible. After graduation, I landed a great job in my field and moved in with Rowan. We were talking about getting married and starting a family of our own. Life was good and I was happier than I'd ever been. Then, out of the blue, I got a call from my dad. Lana had been in a car accident. She wasn't badly hurt, but she needed surgery and would require several weeks of recovery time. And of course, my mother had volunteered our old home as Lana's recovery space. Your mother was hoping you'd come home for a while to help out, Dad said. You know, just until Lana's back on her feet. I was stunned. After years of hardly speaking to me, now my mother wanted me to drop everything and come play nurse to my childhood bully. I'm sorry, Dad, I said, but that's not possible. I have a job and a life here. I can't just leave for weeks on end. Dad sighed. I thought you might say that. Your mother will be disappointed. You know how much she cares about Lana. Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. Even now, after all these years, my mother still cared more about Lana than me. Yeah, I said bitterly. I know exactly how much Mom cares about Lana. Goodbye, Dad. I hung up the phone and burst into tears. Rowan found me sobbing on the couch and held me while I poured out the whole story. Not just about the phone call, but about all the years of Lana's bullying and my mother's neglect. I'm so sorry you went through all that, Rowan said when I'd finished. But you know what? I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself now. You don't owe them anything. Rowan's words gave me strength. He was right. I didn't owe my mother or Lana a thing. I'd built a good life for myself despite their best efforts to tear me down. It was time to make a clean break. The next day, I called my mother directly. As soon as she answered, I could tell she was gearing up for a guilt trip. Jennifer, thank goodness, she said. I've been so worried about you. Did your father tell you about poor Lana? We really need your help, sweetheart. The family has to stick together in times like these. I took a deep breath. No, Mom, I'm not coming home to help Lana. In fact, I'm not coming home ever again. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then, what do you mean, sweetie? Of course you're coming home. We're your family. No, I said firmly. You stopped being my family a long time ago. Every time you chose Lana over me every time you ignored her bullying, every time you dismissed my feelings. You were showing me exactly where I stood in your life, and now I'm showing you where you stand in mine." "Jennifer," Mom gasped, "how can you say such things? I've always loved you." "Maybe you have," I replied, "but you never showed it, not when it mattered. And now it's too late. I'm done, Mom. Don't call me again. Don't try to contact me. And as far as I'm concerned, you're dead to me." I hung up the phone before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but I felt lighter than I had in years. It was like a weight I'd been carrying since childhood had finally been lifted off my shoulders. Over the next few weeks, my phone blew up with calls and texts from my parents and other relatives. I ignored them all. I blocked my parents' numbers and set up email filters to send their messages straight to trash. I even called my company's HR department to make sure my parents couldn't contact me at work. It wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, times when I wondered if I was being too harsh. But then I'd remember all the times I'd cried myself to sleep as a child, all the times I felt alone and unprotected in my own home, and I knew I was doing the right thing. Rowan was my rock through it all. He supported my decision completely and helped me stay strong when my resolve wavered. We got married that fall in a small ceremony with just our closest friends. I didn't invite any of my family, and I didn't regret it for a second. Life went on. Rowan and I bought a house and started talking about having kids. My career continued to flourish. I made new friends and built a chosen family of people who truly cared about me. Then, about 2 years after I cut ties with my parents, I got an unexpected visitor at work. I was in my office when my assistant buzzed me. "There's a woman here to see you," she said. "She says she's your mother." My heart started racing. "Tell her I'm in a meeting," I said quickly, "and then call security if she won't leave." But before my assistant could respond, I heard a commotion outside my office. Then my door burst open, and there stood my mother. She looked older than I remembered, her hair grayer and her face more lined. But her eyes were the same, and right now they were filled with tears. "Jennifer," she said, her voice breaking, "please just give me 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I stood up, my hands clenched at my sides. "You shouldn't be here," I said coldly. "I told you not to contact me." I know," Mom said, stepping further into my office and closing the door behind her. "But I had to see you. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I owe you an apology. Many apologies, actually." I was so shocked I couldn't speak. In all the years I'd known her, I never once heard my mother apologize to me. "I've been seeing a therapist," Mom continued when I didn't respond. "She's helped me see how badly I messed up with you. I was so focused on trying to help Lana that I completely neglected your needs. I let her bully you, and I made excuses for her behavior instead of protecting you. I was a terrible mother to you, Jennifer, and I'm so sorry." Tears were streaming down her face now. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her it was okay. But a bigger part of me, the part that had been hurt and ignored for so many years, held firm. "I appreciate your apology," I said, my voice steady, "but it doesn't change anything. You had years to realize your mistakes, years to make things right. You only started caring when I finally stood up for myself and cut you out. That's not love, Mom. That's just you not wanting to face the consequences of your actions." Mom's face crumpled. "Please, Jennifer, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging you to give me another chance. I want to make things right. I want to be a part of your life again." I shook my head. "No, Mom. I have a good life now. I'm happy. I have people around me who truly care about me and support me. I'm not willing to let you back in just so you can hurt me again." But I'm your mother," she said weakly. "Biology doesn't make you a mother," I replied. "Actions do. And your actions showed me a long time ago that you weren't the mother I needed. I'm sorry, but my decision stands. Please leave now before I have to call security." Mom stood there for a moment, tears still falling. Then, without another word, she turned and left my office. As soon as the door closed behind her, I sank into my chair, my whole body shaking. Part of me felt guilty for being so harsh, but a bigger part felt relieved, empowered even. For the first time, I'd stood up to my mother face to face and maintained my boundaries. That night, I told Rowan everything that had happened. He held me close and told me how proud he was of me for standing my ground. "You did the right thing," he said. "You gave her a chance to be a real mother to you for years, and she failed every time. You don't owe her anything now." In the days that followed, I waited for the guilt or regret to set in, but it never came. Instead, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. I'd finally closed that chapter of my life for good. Over the next few months, I heard through the grapevine that my mother had finally kicked Lana out of the house. Apparently, my confrontation with Mom had opened her eyes to how she'd been enabling Lana's bad behavior all these years. I also heard that Mom had started volunteering at a local youth center, working with kids from troubled homes. Part of me was glad to hear she was trying to make amends, even if it wasn't with me, but it didn't change my decision to keep her out of my life. A year after Mom's surprise visit to my office, Rowan and I welcomed our first child, a beautiful baby girl we named Lily. As I held her in my arms for the first time, I made a silent promise. I would always put her first. I would protect her, support her, and make sure she never doubted for a second how much she was loved. In that moment, I finally understood the depth of my mother's failure, but I also felt grateful. Her mistakes had taught me exactly what kind of mother I didn't want to be, and I was determined to break the cycle and give Lily the loving, supportive childhood I never had. Today, Lily is 5 years old, and we have a 2-year-old son named Max. Our home is filled with love, laughter, and the occasional chaos that comes with young children. We have our struggles like any family, but we face them together. I still think about my mother sometimes, wondering how she's doing or if she ever truly understood the pain she caused me. But those thoughts are fleeting. My focus is on the family I've created, the family that loves me unconditionally and puts me first just as I do for them. Cutting ties with my mother was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was also one of the best decisions I've ever made. It allowed me to heal, to grow, and to become the person and the mother I always wanted to be. To anyone out there struggling with toxic family members, know this: you have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to set boundaries, and sometimes loving yourself means letting go of those who hurt you, even if they share your blood. It's not an easy road, but trust me when I say it's worth it, because on the other side of that pain is a life filled with genuine love, respect, and happiness, and you deserve nothing less. Here are my thoughts about the story. Jennifer's mom? Ma'am, like, what the actual hell was going on in that woman's head? I mean, I get wanting to help out a kid who lost her parents, but completely ignoring your own daughter's feelings and well-being, that's next level messed up. It's like she adopted Lana and decided to put Jennifer up for adoption at the same time. But forget to tell Jennifer about it, and don't even get me started on Lana. That girl was a straight-up sociopath, smashing a birthday cake in someone's face and then laughing about it. Who does that? I've seen some mean girls in my time, but Lana takes the cake. Pun absolutely intended. But you know what really got me? The way Jennifer's mom kept making excuses for Lana's behavior. It's like, lady, your daughter is literally crying and covered in cake, and you're telling her to share? Share what? The humiliation? The emotional trauma? I swear, some parents need to take a basic course in, I don't know, not being a complete doormat to bullies. Now, I gotta give major props to Jennifer for how she handled everything. I mean, this girl went through years of abuse and neglect, and instead of letting it break her, she used it as motivation to build a better life for herself. That's some serious strength right there. When she finally stood up to her mom and cut ties, I was ready to grab the confetti and start spraying. And can we talk about Rowan for a second? That dude is the real MVP of this story, supporting Jennifer through all the family drama, helping her stay strong when she was doubting herself. That's what a real partner does. Rowan, my man, if you're out there listening, you're setting the bar high for the rest of the guys. But I think the part that really got to me was when Jennifer's mom showed up at her office 2 years later. Like, on one hand, I want to give the mom some credit for finally realizing her mistakes and trying to make amends. But on the other hand, it's like too little too late. You know, the damage was already done, and Jennifer had every right to protect herself and the life she'd built. It's funny because I've read a lot of stories about people cutting ties with toxic family members, but this one felt different. Maybe it's because we got to see Jennifer's whole journey, from the scared little girl getting bullied to the strong, successful woman standing her ground. It really drives home the point that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're family. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow.